and I'm the Executive Director of Directed Action. I'm also the co-chair of the LA Chamber Small Business Council, along with Michael Ochoa and Shanae O'Rourke. Before we begin, I'd like to once again review a few housekeeping announcements. First, please stay muted to avoid any background noise. Next, we ask that you introduce yourself in the chat with your name, title, organization, and contact information. Utilize the chat to communicate with fellow attendees to submit your questions during the audience Q&A. I'd also like to thank our sponsors one more time: Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Facebook, Safer at Work, and Kaiser Permanente. As business gets increasingly digital, it's becoming more important than ever to stay up to date with the tech tools available for your business. In this session, we're going to hear about utilizing all of those tools at your disposal to tell your story and create content directed at your audience. And now, to kick things off, it is my pleasure to introduce the founder of Adelante Movement, Nelly Galan. Nelly is a self-made entrepreneur, the first president of entertainment for US network Telemundo, as well as an Emmy award-winning producer. Following her remarks, Nelly will moderate a panel discussion on building and leveraging your digital brand. Thank you for joining us, Nelly. The floor is yours.
Hi, everybody. We've spent so much time together in the last year with the Chamber and helping you all with the PPP loans and the EIDL loans. I know we were in a moment of crisis and we had a really rough year, but thank you. Thank God we're coming out of it and we're in a different place. And I think one of the things we've all learned is that the world is digital, and that so many of you already started going digital, and so many of you were in crisis and really hadn't gone there yet. I, for one, have had a really hard time with it. I have a social media component to my business, and my son kept telling me, "You've got to go on TikTok, Mom. I go, "I don't want to go on TikTok. I don't want to." And, I used my kid and he helped me, and we're doing really well. And, I always want to encourage you to build self-made families, to use our kids. Sometimes we don't get this whole generation, but they really get this digital world. And this is a moment to bring them into the fold and have them help us. We have to ask for help. So I really want to encourage you all to think about this moment and really bringing the family together out of crisis and into creating a new future for all of you. And I'm very excited because we have an incredible panel today. And I really want to give them as much time as possible because they have so much to say to help you all build and leverage your digital brand. And I think that is the thing we all need going forward. So many opportunities, so many ways to get great customers this way. And I know that so many of us are reticent. I myself, I'm dying to hear everything they have to say. So let me introduce them to you. First, we have Roberto Martinez, who is the founder and CEO of Braven Agency, a digital marketing agency that focuses on scaling SMBs. He's also a Google digital coach, a national trainer, and he trains diverse small businesses on how to utilize tech tools to grow their businesses. I need your help, Roberto, so I'm very excited. Then there's Diana Dukas, public policy manager at Facebook, where she sits at the intersection of Facebook's policy priorities and how Facebook and its family of apps can empower small businesses to create, build, and grow their businesses. I use Facebook a lot. I want to hear more about, how to really target my audience. And I mean, Instagram can make or break your business. So I can't wait to hear from Diana. And finally, Lee Allman, Executive Vice President and Corporate Reputation Lead, Los Angeles at Edelman, an incredible PR firm. Lee brings 25 years of corporate, government, and nonprofit experience building and sustaining brands and reputations in areas ranging from global food systems to financial services. I think so many of us don't realize the power of earned media and PR. And again, in this moment, very, very important. So let's welcome all of them. Hi, everybody. I would like to start with Roberto. Roberto, you have lived, you're training people. I am one of those people that has gone upside down. What do you see is going on with small businesses? What are the things we need to learn right this moment?
Well, good morning, Nelly. Good morning, all audience participants. And First off, I'd like to thank everyone for being here. I'd like to thank the Chamber for convening us and bringing us all together. These workshops are very vital, very important for our small business community. And Nelly, great seeing you again. Always great seeing your smiling face. Your energy is very contagious. So just to address your question, be very direct, what we're seeing right now with small businesses, the need to have some digital transformation. This is a concept that's been going on forever. It's been around forever, but we know post-pandemic that we do not want to go through this again. And so as a result, we want to make sure that our small businesses are able to sell online through different digital marketing tools and services, websites, business listings, you name it, any way that you can reach your prospective customer. In the event that we have unforeseen shocks to the system, we are able to still sell online and digitize our businesses and be able to have that e-commerce component to the business, regardless if you're an e-commerce product and or service. So that's what we're seeing in the marketplace. It's very exciting. The mayor, Mayor Garcetti, has invested heavily into a program called LA Optimized. And we just launched our LA Optimized Accelerator Academy 2 weeks ago. We're going to have an amazing session with Facebook, with Google, and with Yelp coming up. So I want you guys, I'm inviting everyone in the room right now to join us and register. It's a free event. And so, yeah, so it's very important to digitize small business. That's what we're seeing post-pandemic.
Okay, so, you know, I'm going to come back to you, but I want to go to Diana, because I think so many of us use Facebook for ourselves as a social thing. And I really don't think that, even I did not realize how Facebook and Instagram, how you can target your audience, and you can buy ads. There's many ways to do it. And I'm really not good at it yet either. So Diana, can you talk to us about, I like to say, you know, we're now getting a lot of money from the government, which is great, but we have to learn to fish. We have to learn to fish. How do we fish through Facebook?
Sure. So one, thank you all for having us here today and being a part of this panel. I think it's, you know, always great and important to make sure that we're keeping the state of small business in mind and doing everything that we can to support our small business economy. And so to get to that point exactly, there are definitely a couple of things, especially using our platform. One, I do want to point everyone to our business resource hub. So Facebook, at the beginning of the pandemic, we knew that exactly what we were just talking about, that this transition from offline to online, or having a more sophisticated online presence, was going to be of the utmost importance to small businesses. How are they communicating with their audiences? How are they pivoting their operations online? And so we created a business resource hub, which I know that we'll link to in the chat. But it is a compilation of all of our free educational resources. So at this business resource hub, and also a part of our Boost with Facebook training that was just mentioned, we go into detail on how you can best leverage and use Facebook and Instagram and our other family of apps to build your business. And so I do want to make sure that you all know that there are free resources for that. But let's talk about the nitty-gritty of it. You know, the entire goal of advertising is to reach people who are most likely to become your customers. And, you know, taking this approach, it optimizes the amount of money you spend per ad, and overall ensures that every dollar is spent effectively. And there are three most important things to keep in mind as you're thinking about how to reach your customers. You have to define who your audience is, what does your customer need, where are they located, and where are some of the characteristics that some of your customers share. And I can go on, and I'm very excited to be able to do that. But those are, you know, really thinking about those three questions, and then thinking about how are you generating awareness? How are you generating interest in your business, in the products and services? You know, give consideration to what other people are seeing, what other business offerings are out there, and ask for information. There's no reason that, you know, everyone doesn't lean on their own community to better serve their community and their audiences. And then, of course, you're looking at conversion. So you're encouraging people who are interested in your business to take a specific action, and whether that's filling out a form or making a purchase or any other way that you're going to be able to continue to engage with that customer. So those are just a couple of first tips at the beginning of this, of really understanding how to best think about reaching your customers.
Okay, so you both just told me kind of what's the big idea. We're going to come back. I want everybody at home to realize we're going to try to show you exactly how to do this. So the idea is we have to do it. These are some resources, and now we're going to come back and tell you how to do it. But I want to get Lee in the middle first. Because I think for most of us, when we think of PR, we think of like celebrities, J-Lo and Bennifer and this and that. We don't really know how that works for us and our small business. So can you just give us like an overview of why businesses should be thinking about PR as something that's important for us?
Yeah, I sure can. Thanks so much, Nellie. And just to echo what Diana and Roberto said, thank you to the Chamber and to everybody for joining us today. And just want to echo the importance of really, paying special attention to our small and medium businesses. I think I saw a stat that we had something like a 25% jump in new business applications during the pandemic. So it just shows just how hugely important entrepreneurism is as a drive for the economy. So we're super focused on that. And I'm glad you asked it that way, Nellie, too, because I think people think of PR as publicity, especially in Southern California. You think of just, doing the rope lines and getting, the photos and the mentions in some of the tabloids. But what it's really about, and this is something we study a lot, is really about building trust with your stakeholders. And that's what really is at the core of everything we recommend to our clients, whether they're small, medium, or even large multinational businesses. It's something we've been studying for 20 years, more than 20 years, actually, ever since the battle in Seattle, the 1999 World Trade Organizations, where you saw this massive protests and our leadership was asking, why are people not trusting these institutions anymore? And so over the last 2 decades, we've studied trust as a result of that. And we've seen building trust with your stakeholders is really the ultimate currency in a relationship that institutions have with their stakeholders. It defines your license to lead, your license to operate. It allows you to take risk, and if you make mistakes, to rebound from them. So we have research that comes out every year called the Trust Barometer. And we have recently, just yesterday, released our newest piece of research that I see Cassandra just dropped into the chat, called Trust, the New Brand Equity. It's our most recent study of trust in brands. And some interesting findings came out of that study. And this is one of the reasons why it's so important to get out there, whether it's on social media or on your websites, or even, with earned media, like, by earned media.
Can you explain earned media? Because I don't think everybody.
Yeah, I was just gonna do that. Yeah, and by earned media, I mean, the news media primarily, but it could also mean blogs or other online. It could be online or print publications that your audiences are reading. So it's really important to understand your audience as part of that, to even know where to put your efforts out there. So, one of the things that we recommend to all of our clients who are just starting out with building a brand, or even people that are leveraging it, is really know your audience, know what they're reading, know what they're watching, know what they're listening to, and maybe target your efforts to those places. It might not always be a front page story in the LA Times that they care most about. It might be the people that they follow on social media. So you want to understand who those folks are and use that to help guide the content you develop. And I think that's reflected in some of the findings that we found in this study. One is that brand trust matters even more than love of a brand. 88% of our respondents said that trust in a brand is more important than their love of a brand, which was 81%. It's also grown in importance. I think 68% or so of our respondents said it's more important for them to trust a brand than it has been in the past. And that grows substantially when you're talking about respondents from 18 to 34. So not just Gen Z, but millennials, some early millennials or late millennials too. That number was 75%. So it's pretty dramatic. But I think maybe the most important finding, and this is something that speaks to the kind of content that you might develop online, the most important one was that brands are overwhelmingly expected to act beyond their business, which is a way that we asked it. But really what that meant was that 86% of respondents expect brands to take actions. And you might be saying, well, what kind of actions? So the list might not surprise you after the past year we've been through, but it includes things like addressing societal challenges, standing up to speak the truth even when it's hard, supporting local communities, using representative imagery, making and helping create a more accepting culture, and a few others that you can see on the slides. And that matters because that's the kind of content that if you create content around those things, you're going to build trust with your stakeholders. Not the one-time things like the black square on Instagram last year. We don't want to virtue signal. We're talking about ongoing commitments that you're making in these areas. So I know I talked too long already, but I just wanted to lay that out as a grounding for the other things I'll say.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I think for some of our small businesses listening, some of the stuff you guys are saying sounds like a foreign language. I know for me, I get it, but I want to talk a little bit tactically. How do we do this? Like, how do we begin to make content, even if whether we have a brand that is selling product, or we're just bringing, we're getting awareness of our brand. How do we start shifting, instead of doing, a lot of us that do social media personally, to using our kids, our family, whatever it takes to make content that's now gearing toward our businesses. Any of you can jump in, like tactically, how do we do that? How do we just say, okay, let's come up with, what is it, something that we know? I mean, I know I saw, I saw Rock and Wagner Bakery, and they started, they weren't even selling things online, and then they had to in the pandemic, and they started doing little recipes online. And so I started thinking, oh, wow, that recipe is so cool. And I started learning about that company. How to make bread, for instance, they were doing. So Roberto or Diana, can you guys talk about how do we start just shifting how we make content? Like, it's like with the TikTok thing, I was like, I said to my son, I don't belong on TikTok, because I teach people about entrepreneurship and money. And he's like, all those TikTokers are making money and they need to know what to do. I was like, oh, you're right. So Roberto, talk a little bit about that. And Diana, how do we shift the kind of content we make?
Yeah, Nelly, it's a great question. And I think we're all circling around the same thing, which is building your brand and humanizing that brand, really adding a face to the brand that the community, your customers can touch. Lee brought that up, and I think that study 1996 and really reinforces that need. Google is part of that mission to humanize its own brand. They realized they weren't doing a great job of communicating to their small business communities. And so as a result of that, they created something called the Google Digital Coaches Program. And they scaled that program since the pandemic from having coaches, locally sourced coaches. These are people who are part of the community, who invested in the community, are small businesses themselves. And they said, hey, would you like to represent the Google brand so that the community that you are already a part of realizes that you can actually reach out and engage with us. And so that program has been very, very successful. It's grown from 8 coaches to 20 coaches across the United States. Why do I bring that up? Because just like all politics is local, all business is local. We want to buy from our neighbor. We don't want to buy from someone across the country, across the world. And so what that means is that we have to put a face to your content, and we have to speak to the people that we're working and we're servicing, because everything is tribal at the end of the day. We want to work with our community. So the way you go do that in a very tactful and tactful manner is by realizing who is your customer, who is the people who are buying from you, what do they want, and creating the content, the images, the videos, the verbiage that speaks to them in their way and meets them where they're at, not where you want them to be. That's extremely important. One of the biggest lessons that we learned is we could create as many social media posts and as many, online paid ad campaigns as we want, but if, WhatsApp or text messaging works best, then we need to meet our customers at that place, wherever they're at. And that's something that the pandemic really highlighted. It's important for us to meet our customers and then humanize ourselves. And you mentioned, Nelly, TikTok. I think it's a very unique platform because it really brings you into their home. I mean, if you see the TikTok, they're actually in their garage, they're in their home, they're in their room, and the personality comes out, and you want to be able to engage with your customer to build that trust. Just like everything else in life, it's all about trust. We want to trust the people we work with.
I also realize that I think we get scared. I mean, especially those of us that are older get scared that we're gonna make a mistake. And I think that what I've learned is that the beauty of doing this kind of work is that you can try it out, and if it's not working, you see right away it's not working. Nobody's looking at it, and you could erase it, and then go do something else and try something else. So I think I know, because I hear from a lot of business owners, we're afraid, like we don't know what to do, so we're afraid we're going to do something wrong. And I think that's something to discuss. I mean, and I look at Diana and I think to myself, there's so many businesses that don't even have their pictures up on Instagram, and they're so visual. And, just to be on, part of it is just being in the game, right? Getting in the game.
I mean, that's exactly right. It's having a presence, and everything Roberto said, he couldn't have said it better. I love how you just so eloquently distilled that and brought it home, because again, what the pandemic has shown us is that you have to invest in your community. You have to invest in the people that are with you, and also communicating with them, I think, is one of the most important things that we've learned from this, because how else was your community going to know how to support you? How else were they going to know if your hours had changed or your operations had changed, or what that actually looked like for you? Or if you were closed, and how could they best show up and buy a gift card from you or something else? And so that was a big focus for us at Facebook, is really not only just thinking about all of the different resources that we could provide, but really how could we tailor our products to show up for the business community? And so, and especially in this communication phase. And so we established, products like gift cards, like I just mentioned, or we actually completely changed our fundraising tools for the first time. Traditionally on Facebook, fundraising was limited to individuals and nonprofits, but we made sure to expand it to businesses, because we know that everyone needed to diversify their income and their support system. We also saw people really gravitating towards temporary service changes, which was a new product. Again, being able to communicate with their customers what was changing. We also, I could go on and on, but we, created something called Discover Nearby Businesses. So with you, it could be within a 5 to a 50-mile radius. You could find the local businesses in wherever you were geographically to look and see who is open and how you could support them. We also saw people really moving towards personalized advertising, which is a really important and impactful tool that allows especially small businesses to target their audiences, their specific and designed and intended audiences, in a really efficient and economical way. We all know that most businesses, except the Fortune 500 potentially, are working within limited marketing dollars, right? And there's an old adage, which I know I'm going to get wrong, but you know that you're spending 50% of your marketing dollars efficiently and well, and the other 50% isn't hitting your customer at all. The problem is you don't know which 50%. And so the thing is that if you're able to use these targeting tools, you're able to use those dollars really, really well. And again, that's another way of communicating with your customers and building that network. So when we're talking about brand and brand building, who is it that you're speaking to, and how are you showing up to them to, again, create that community?
Don't you guys think that also when we're using Facebook or we're using any of these platforms, sometimes we don't know how to ask for what we need? Like, we're not saying, hey, I need you to like, when I see people that say, oh, my dad's donut shop is going under, please support us, or please, oh my God, we want you. Like, we already have some followers personally. How do we grow those followers that we already have? How do we start messaging in a way that also is vulnerable and that also says, this is what we want right now?
I could offer some thoughts on that for sure to start. I think the main principle really, and it's interesting to hear Roberto and Diana talk in this way, because it's the same sort of thing that we tell folks. You really have to understand your audiences, and then you have to be authentic to your own brand and who you are as a company. And I think when you mentioned the Rockin' Wagner Bakery recipes, it's a perfect example, because Hans Rockenwagner is a lot of things. He's a restaurateur, he's a famous baker, but underneath all of it, he's a chef, and he's a well-known chef. So it makes so much sense for them to be posting recipes like that. And whatever your brand is, the authenticity really is the most important part of it, because people trust and I know I keep harping on trust, but they trust that which they know is authentic, and they do not trust things that are not authentic. So let's say you're a family company, right? Maybe you want to have one of the family members take over your social media channels for a day, for instance.
Yeah, like your kids.
Right. You could also, your kids, you could also just think about your influential customers and who they might be. Do they have their own followerships on social media themselves? They could do the same thing, or even your employees. People love to hear the stories of the employees that are actually doing the work at these businesses, because it's super authentic, and it's very relatable. So another example might be sustainable sourcing. Maybe you are a company that is extremely focused on sustainability. You could maybe do a series featuring profiles of your suppliers, just for example. That's the kind of thing that really underscores something that's different and unique about you. I think, and it's so funny that we sort of circled around some of the same elements of the things that you should do very tactically as you're starting to get into this space. I mean, one of them, we've said it a million times, but I'll say it again, is know your audiences. Understand who they are and who you're talking to. Understand where they are, And that's why I mentioned social listening in the chat. I mean, social listening is really just a fancy way of saying, going on social media and like seeing what's on there. So understanding
Tracking
what
other
people are
people's social media is what you mean, right?
yeah, both your own social media for sure. So, I know they say don't get too hung up in the comment section, and that's generally true, but you do sort of want to understand what's going on in the comment section to understand when it makes sense to engage and when it makes sense maybe not to engage. But then it's also understanding what your competitors are doing online. So taking a little bit of time and just browsing through their channels and seeing the content that's working and maybe what's not working, just to give you some ideas. Yeah, Kevin, teenagers are very good at social listening. That's for sure. And then I think another thing to consider, and this is something that Roberto probably has some thinking on, Diana too for sure, is SEO, search engine optimization work is something that could be so valuable as you're, not just as you're starting and building your brand, but even for people use SEO forever, really. So it's a really important tool, and that Google has some unbelievable tools for that. I don't want to step on what he could talk about, but I know that's something
about that because SEO
yeah,
is
it's an
really
important one.
expensive for most people. Is there a way to do it a little less expensive? Roberto?
Yeah, no, love to jump in there. And thank you, Lee, for that plug. Appreciate it.
Hey, we recommend it to everybody. So
yeah, search engine optimization is just a fancy way of saying, how do you show up on the world's largest search engine that happens to be Google, or the second world's largest search engine that happens to be YouTube? And then it's all around content creation. And so we're talking about how do you show up authentically? How do you show up with your audience where they're at? But you're also creating this content, and that content lives online. And so when you want to think through it, what is my prospective customer searching for when they have a problem, right? Because all of us in this room are providing a solution to the marketplace. We are solutions, right? And that's why I hate that term. It's like, oh, what kind of solutions do you provide? But the truth is, you're a small business owner and you created something that people want and need. And so as they're going through their day and they had a break in their day, something happened. Let's say you sell blenders and that blender broke, or let's say you're an auto mechanic shop and someone's driving their car and they hear a sound. They had a break in their day, and you're providing a solution that helps them out at that particular moment in time. So most of us are going to reach for this little device and are going to use the search engine to look for solutions to our problems. And that's how you start. You start thinking about it, and you have what's called empathy mapping. You put yourself in the customer's shoes and you say, what are the key words and key phrases that my customer is going to be looking for? And then you start using that as your content strategy. So Nelly, you brought up a great point about our baker. He realized that you want to go along and create some amazing, maybe sourdough bread, right? As most of us took on baking and cooking during the pandemic. So he's providing value to you. He's saying, oh, well, how about if I put different recipes online so that my prospective and current customer base will find that and will realize I exist, right? So that's a roundabout way of getting customers in the door and building that trust that we're talking about. So us as small business owners, we need to put ourselves in the customer's shoes and realizing what are those key words and key phrases prospective customers are typing into the Google search engine. Now, for those of us who want to learn how to go about doing that, as a free tool that we provide at no cost, there's a couple I'm gonna plug to. The first one is called Google Trends. And this particular tool is fantastic. A couple years ago, I like to say I'm a fatty, not a foodie. And so I try to watch my weight. I kind of ballooned, like most of us, the Rona 15, the Rona 20. But a couple years ago, paleo was really big and keto was really big and cauliflower crust pizza was really big. And I have a local bakery pizza shop that I absolutely love here in the city of Long Beach called Bono's Pizza. And I talked to the owner because I know the owner's probably owned business, family owned. And I said, hey, you should create some cauliflower crust. He looked at me, he said, get out of here, you hippie. We're not doing that. What are you talking about? But I went online, I showed him the Google Trend tool, and I type in, look, here's regular pizza crust, thin crust, and cauliflower or gluten-free. And you saw the spike. So while it's a testimonial of one person, now you actually have data that backs up that perspective. And now he could start creating content around paleo or gluten-free crust. And now it's commonplace. Every pizza shop you go to, there's a ton of it. But if you get ahead of the curve and you start putting yourself in the customer's shoes, you can start creating the content that's relevant to your customer. So that's, Leah, I appreciate you.
I love that tool. Yeah. But now tell me, were you going to tell me an SEO tool? Because I really need it.
Yeah, so that Google Trends is a great SEO tool. Now, if you want to understand how the Google algorithm thinks and how I call him Wally, you remember the Disney movie Wall-E?
Yeah.
Wall-E organizes the world's trash, well, Google organizes the world's information, right? So it's organizing this world of information. It's doing that through something called the Google bot. And it's searching about 40,000 websites a second. It's very, very quick. So it's reading through your website and it doesn't read it with eyes, it reads it with the script. So our websites are created with letters and numbers and series of codes. You have to think through what Wall-E is thinking. There's a tool called the Google Search Console, and the Google Search Console will give you some backend and access into how the Google bot, what I call Wall-E, thinks. And it'll tell you, here's where you're ranked on the first page, second page, third page of Google. Here is your sitemap, and the sitemap is how your website is organized. And here's how you can potentially improve that sitemap and improve that ranking so that you're found on the first page of Google, which is what we all want to do. I'll tell a joke later on after we go offline about who wants to be found on the second page of Google. Nobody. We want to be on the first page. We want to be on the first page organically. And if we do that well through content, organic content, we can actually achieve that. So that's my big plug, the Google Search Console and Google Trends.
Okay, I want to make sure it's Google Search Console. Console.
Yeah.
Okay, and then just to be clear, because I know a lot of people are asking, Google Trends, when you're saying find this data, that means you want to use in your website those words. Is that, explain to people how they can turn that into their SEO?
So you're a thought leader, Nelly. You are an amazing thought leader, especially within our Latino community, general small business as well. But when people want to see someone who has made it and has transitions from big corporate America to small business, to empowering and helping small business, they might type in small business coach, small business consultant. Those are our key words and key phrases that people are using on the Google search engine. You, as a result, think about it. It's like, hey, you know what I can do? I could create a lot of content, a lot of blog posts or white papers or case studies of how I was able to help businesses scale and go digital or grow their company. And so you start creating these blog posts, these white papers, and posting them on your website and on your online assets. And then when people type that in, the Google bot, Wall-E, matches your content to your website, to what the prospective customer search, and drives them to your location. Yeah.
So when people are charging you money to do SEO, that's really what they're doing. They're trying to find keywords.
So that's part of it. So there's organic and then there's paid. So organic is kind of what I'm circling around, making sure, yeah, you structure your website correctly. You have the right type of content on the website, always thinking about the customer first. Empathy map that customer journey to make sure that you're providing the type of content that's relevant to them. Now, paid search engine optimization is a little bit different. There's a lot of different strategies that you could implement, something like backlinking. One of my favorite things to do with a PR company like Edelman, and I mean, they're huge. They're the biggest PR company in the world. But what PR is really good at is non-traditional and traditional paid media that helps you raise and elevate your status across a multitude of websites, right? So not just one website. Right now we have one business website. Let's say most of our businesses here have one website. But as you start thinking of strategic partners that can potentially list your website, talk about you, have a guest post, or if you have PR team that can actually promote you, submit press releases, now you have a lot more presence online, and that boosts or increases what's called your authority, your online authority within your category, which is your business space. And that's what you want. You want to make sure people see you as that particular best baker in Hollywood or North Hollywood or in Bel Air or in Downey, or for marketing agencies, or best marketing agency in the city of Downey or South LA, whatever that happens to be. That's how you do it. And you could hire a team to do that. Now there's other tricks called, there's images. So when you go to any website, I challenge you, go to your website or go to your friend's website and start downloading their images and see if they actually wrote down what that image represents. In other words, if I'm going to your website, Nelly, and I download an image of you teaching someone how to be a small business entrepreneur, but it just has a set of numbers and letters, that's not really good SEO, because what that means is the Wall-E, right, the bot is searching your website and it read your image, and the image had letters and numbers. It didn't say Nelly, small business consultant extraordinaire.
So what I'm hearing you say, let me see if I'm getting this right, because I feel like I'm that small business. It sounds to me like what Lee does in a weird way comes first. You got to know who you are, what is your unique proposition, what is like if you were writing a PR thing, what is your company or what do you do, right, Lee? And
That's
then
right. Yep.
and then in the middle of all that, I have to go and do my homework with the Google Trends and find out, is my business really in the right space? Do people want what I have to do? Or is there a way to say what I do better? Or is there words I can put in it that are trending right now? And then I have to go do my work, which is what Diana's talking about, like actually show up on Facebook and on Instagram and on TikTok and all these places and start working it and seeing if it works, and then trying things and seeing what is really resonating with people. Is that correct? Does that sound right to you guys? And do you want to add anything to what I just said?
The one thing I would say is that as we're talking about in that sequence, one of the tools with Facebook and Instagram is the ads manager. So with the ads manager interface, you can view and change and see results of the campaigns of your ad campaigns all in one place. So we all know that, for those of you who use our multiple platforms, we're very thankful that you do. But we also want to make sure that we're making it as easy as possible for you to understand the impact and results of your ad campaigns. So by using the ads manager tool, you're able to see exactly those results. You're able to enable, control, and you can customize multiple ads at once. You can, edit settings.
If I want to go target, you're saying this is helping me.
Yep. So if you're using our personalized advertising tools and you're using our ads, you can use the ads manager to really understand the results, the reach, the impressions that you have, and also the cost per result. We want to make sure that you're getting the right ROI for what you're putting in to make sure that you're doing, that nothing needs to be fine-tuned. You want to make sure that you're hitting that sweet spot. And by using the ads manager tool, you'll be able to help calibrate wherever you might need. And of course, as we all know, and I think everybody here would say, a lot of this is trial and error.
Right. So let's talk about that, because I know a lot of people may not know what ROI is. It's a return on investment. People want to make sure that if you spend $10 to put an ad, that you start with very small amounts of money, which, by the way, in the old days, TV was so expensive. It was very expensive. In today's world, you can do ads on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook, on all of them. And you can start with very little money and say, I want to reach, like, I'm a Mexican restaurant. I want to reach Latinos between this age and this age in this area, and very specifically. And you can see, what Diana's saying is, it'll tell you, I spent $10. This is how many people were reached with $10. So you can actually see the results. I think that these are all things that, as small business owners, it is very intimidating. So that's why I'm really glad we're having this conversation and we're breaking it down. And, Lee, I have such love for PR because I personally have really seen the results of PR. But I do think of all of the things we're talking about, it's the most intimidating to people, because it feels like, I don't even know anybody in PR. I don't know how to write a press release. I don't really know what my brand is. Are there any tools to help people figure this, kind of figure out, I guess what comes to my mind, just to throw you something, is if I'm a Mexican restaurant, just to say something, there's so many Mexican restaurants. How do I differentiate myself? Would it be like, I would say, Abuelita's recipe? Would it be, we pick a thing, we have the best margaritas, or we have blue corn tortillas? Is it finding the unique proposition among something where there's so many? Maybe even thinking about changing the name of it to, instead of taqueria, Abuelita's taqueria, or what, something like that. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, and it can be, but it doesn't have to be something that far. But before I answer that, I just want to give a props to Diana and Roberto for talking about those tools, because when people think about PR, like I said, they always think about media, and we do that, but we do a more comprehensive approach, and that's why I think it's important to talk about all of these things together. One thing I think we found really helpful with tools on Facebook and Instagram in particular, which we use with our clients all the time, is what you were saying, Nelly, about being able to start small is so important. And I know it's telling a small business to spend money on digital advertising when it's hard because resources are slim. But what I will say is you can start small, and the targeting is unbelievable. And what we found over the last year or so is about half of SMBs, small, medium businesses, are now spending regularly in digital advertising. Half of them are spending less than $300 a month. That's peanuts, but it's not this massive investment necessarily. So you can start small.
I think when you start really small and you see incredible results, then you realize, oh my God, like, why haven't I been doing this? Like, I think also it should be said, because I do this too. I think small businesses, sometimes we work hard and not smart. And I think that we have to, all of these things we're talking about is about how do, like we're afraid to spend $10. Listen, I'm an immigrant. I have the same problem. But we're afraid to spend $100, but $100 might save so much time that you don't realize $100 of your time is like, your time is worth more than that. So I think that's why we have to really listen to this.
We do, and when we're recommending strategies for our clients, of course, public relations and working with the media to try to get stories, of course, we recommend that. But we almost recommend starting with some of these more efficient digital tools first, because you're reaching people directly where they are. And it's almost like the corollary between that sort of targeted approach and like what you're saying, Nelly, when you used to have to buy TV ads. It's like a shotgun approach. You're just spraying it out into the world, and like hopefully it'll hit the eyes that you want to hit. With these tools, you know exactly who you're reaching. And it may not be necessarily, Latinos within a certain age population or a certain community. It might be people who are following other restaurants or food channels and targeting to those people who are primarily Latino possibly, but also that are going to be more likely to, want to read about abuelitas or something like that. But yes, it is very important to start with that story about who you are as a company. What makes you you don't have to be completely different from everybody else, because to try to find something that is completely different, you'll twist yourself into a pretzel and it might not be who you are. It's more about finding a way to talk about it that might be slightly different than other people. And that comes from possibly, obviously I talked about social listening, looking at social media, but also reading the food blogs or the local restaurant blogs. Like, Eater is obviously one example, but it doesn't have to be Eater there. And who doesn't love Eater? But there are a bunch of other blogs that might be local community blogs that you might be reading about what other folks are doing. And when you're reading those kinds of publications, you can see who's written those stories. And if you think of something interesting you want to share with somebody that you'd like to let a reporter know about, you could just email them and just be completely upfront with them. I'm not looking for a story. I just wanted you to know about this thing that we're doing. It's an exciting promotion. Start to get to know them a little bit, and you might be surprised what you come up with. And when you start with the smaller local publications or blogs, that's how you build up into the bigger places. Because when reporters at some of the bigger publications are writing their pieces, they're doing their own research online, which is where SEO comes in and where your social media ads come in. And that's how they determine who their sources are going to be.
So I want to ask you guys, if some of our listeners, and we have a lot of questions, so I want to make sure we leave plenty of time for questions. But if people go, you know what, I just need help. I want to hire a consultant. It seems to me like it is intimidating. It feels like it's going to cost me a fortune. How can I find, Lee, a you, or Roberto, a you? If it's not you guys, where do I find somebody that can get me started, that can be that PR/digital, whatever? How do I do that?
Yeah, I'll start. So it just depends where you're at within your business life cycle. It sounds like a weird term, but in essence, how advanced are you in your business? I think I'm a big proponent of crawl, walk, and run, right? We want to crawl before we can walk, before we can run. So if you don't have much of a budget and you just want to get started, there's a great public programs like the SBDC and the SBA that's completely free to you as a small business. It's paid by your taxes. You could register and sign up and have a consultant free of charge, no cost to you, to talk about anything and everything under the sun when it comes to small business. It could be finance, it could be accounting, it could be marketing, which we're talking about, it could be digital marketing, it could be content. All that is completely free. Now, that's the first step. But if you're a little bit more advanced and have budget to actually invest, I would say tap your network, figure out, and like our business is local. We want to be hyper targeted in the type of marketing agencies that we work with, the type of PR agencies that we work with, the type of marketing dollars that we're going after. So if you're a restaurant, you typically want to work with marketing agencies that specialize in
How do we find
restaurants.
out about that? I mean, I know you can call the chamber, and the chamber has a lot of consultants that could help you. Is there any other way that we can find somebody at our level?
So it depends where you're live. So Google definitely has a partnership program, and we give little badges away for different Google partners that are marketing agencies that are vested and certified with our training tools. So we have a bunch of training tools. Google Analytics is one of those certifications. Google Ads from beginning to advanced is one of those tools. And so you can have a fair amount of confidence that these particular agencies are well versed in that particular skill set. And I could definitely plug it in if there's certain people that are interested in that paid ads or SEO component. And so we have those channels. Yeah.
I think we should look at that. And Lee, I know that like when I watch the morning news in LA and I see they do little profiles on little companies and this and that, I don't think people realize that PR firms call up. I mean, that wasn't just a miracle that happened. So how do, can you give us some advice to maybe not, I know your firm might not have a division for people at that level, but how do we find someone that could get the story of our little shop on the morning news and do all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so first of all, yes, we do actually work with smaller businesses sometimes on a one-off basis. I won't say it's the bulk of our clients, but we definitely do. There are actually some resources online for small businesses. You might try Googling small business PR bootcamp, and you might see it. They're not. I won't say that they're offered frequently or regularly, but they are offered from time to time. And some smaller agencies do offer that. There are also, I want to say, there are some resources from the same, oops, I can't get to it for some reason. So the same organization that Roberto was talking about, BDSC does have some boot camps available. And then, yeah, those are really the two sources I would recommend. And there's such a huge range of sizes of agencies. So some agencies are, very small, scrappy startup agencies themselves that are looking to help their local community members gain a little bit of notoriety. So you could look up those two. And it really, honestly, a Google search using that Wally search engine that Roberto mentioned is a really good way to start.
Great. And Diana, tell me more about, I know you have all these great resources. Again, I want to learn from the bottom up. I know you mentioned it in the beginning, but can you tell them again, if I want to learn how to do ads, how to use your resources, where do I go exactly?
Absolutely. So there are a couple of different things that I would recommend. So one, and we'll drop it again in the chat, but we have a business resource hub, which really just is a full compilation of all of the different free educational tutorials through our partner Blueprint that can walk you step by step into even how to set up your Facebook page, how do you create a story on Instagram, all the way to using some of the more sophisticated or tools like Facebook, Instagram, and Instagram shops. So you can,
how do I go to that? Do I just go to Facebook and look up Business Resource Hub?
Yeah, so it's, you go to facebook.com /business. And it's all going to be right there. And then we also did create an interactive PDF that we'll make sure to link, that we have both available in English and Spanish, to make sure that folks, again, have everything in one easy to navigate place. Because one of the things is that we're very glad to have as many resources as we do, but we know it's not always intuitive. It's not, and it's also that small businesses don't have a ton of time to go searching around the internet or go searching for really around anywhere to say, what exactly is it that I need and how can I find that? And piecemeal it together. We want to show up in one specific place. So I do want to point everybody to that Business Resource Hub and to the PDF that we will send out. I also do want to echo both Lee and Roberto's plug for the Small Business Administration, as well as the SBDCs. I actually am a former SBA appointee under the Obama administration, so thank you ever so much for that plug. And I will also say that that both the SBDCs and your regional SBA or your SBA has a regional and local office. They want you to come see them. Believe me, they want you to come and see them. It is one of, especially the SBDC, yeah. They are one of the most under-recognized gems of the small business support system. I just want to 100% throw my full weight behind that. But then I will also say, you know, you may have heard of the tools on Facebook, the Facebook groups, where you can find people who are similar to you, have similar interests, whether it's sewing or fishing or creating a small business. And so we have a small business group, and we'll make sure to drop that in the chat, but it's facebook.com/groups US. And we'll make sure that that's in the chat. But there you're going to find people who are doing exactly what you're doing. They're throwing spaghetti at the wall. They're figuring out what works, and they're going to have great opportunities to share that information with you. You're creating a cohort of like-minded and motivated individuals who are going through the exact same thing you are. So I really do recommend joining these groups. And then also the ones that are specifically sponsored by Facebook, they're also supported by members of our team. So a lot of the times, if there are questions that our team can jump in and say, here's a link, or this is our advice, or whatever that is, we're going to be able to do that because we want you to succeed. So really want to make sure to plug all of those resources.
So appreciate. I know we have a million questions, so let's.
No, just there's one resource that I forgot to mention is Fiverr.com. It's one of those places where you can get freelance help. So people that aren't ready to commit to an agency relationship right now might be able to get help here and there. And you just log on there and you can search, and I just dropped the link into the chat. You can just search for people to help you with things like a narrative or a story you want to tell, or your press release or something like that.
Love that. Thank you so much. Okay.
Sure, sorry about that.
Cassandra, I'm throwing it to you to start with questions because I know there's a lot. I know you're all thinking, okay, I'm running my business day to day. I have to think macro and figure all this out. It's hard, but these guys here are incredible resources. So let's ask a lot of questions.
Great, thank you, Nelly. One question that we do have is, what types of results have you seen from small businesses utilizing SEO?
Right. So I'd love to fill that one. There is a lot we can do as a small business to grow our SEO presence. The first thing I would direct everyone to, that's completely free to do if you're a small business, is create your Google My Business page. And I submitted that link a little bit earlier on. It's your Google My Business page is literally your business listing on the Google search engine. So anytime anyone types in your business name, it populates. On top of that, that simple tool is going to help you to be found across multiple channels. It has real life insights on how many people are finding you, how many people are searching for you on Google Maps, if people are sending you text messages. There's just a lot of functionality in that component. That's really going to be the first step. And just starting there as a first step for SEO. Also, I would be remiss if I didn't plug in our workshops that we put together every single week here in Los Angeles and across the United States. Free Google trainings as well. If you want to say, hey, I don't want you to tell me, I want to learn myself, we actually have something called Skillshop that you could go and learn how to know about Google Analytics, Google Search Console, Google Ads, Google My Business, on and on and on. So I just plug that in. You can
Where do we find that? Where do we find that?
It's called, I just dropped it in the chat. It's called Google skillshops.withgoogle.com. And you get a nice little certificate for those marketing agencies or marketing associates in the audience. If you get a certain amount of certification, you might be invited out to visit our campus and to be trained with some Google representatives like myself.
Wow, and this is good because we're all wanting to get out. We're sick of being home. So now is a good time for us to learn and take our game to the next level. Okay, Cassandra, what other questions do you have over there?
We have someone who would like to learn more about social listening and how, if you could explain it a little bit more, Lee.
Yeah, sure. So it's kind of a fancy word for just going on social media and checking out some of the channels. So like, you know, Instagram and Facebook, obviously.
Like a detective.
Yeah, like a detective, honestly. So let's say, just for instance, let's go with Abuelitas again, right? You're going with a taqueria in South LA, and you want to go on social media and look for others that are nearby and see what they're doing on social media, or, you know, in the surrounding area. And it really is as simple as going on and looking and understanding what their content is, and then clicking on it and seeing what kind of engagement it's getting. Like, are you looking at the likes and the number of times it's shared? Are people commenting on it? The more of those things that you see, which you would just broadly call engagement, the more of those that you see, the more you know that it's working. So that might suggest to you, okay, that's something that I could consider doing for myself in a, you know, my own sort of like authentic way, or maybe I don't do that sort of approach. It also helps you understand how other people are interacting with their audiences on social media. Like I said, you know, you don't want to get hung up in the comments section, but you do want to understand what's happening in there. So for yourself, when you're doing social listening for your own platforms, it's also about understanding what your audiences are saying on your platforms and figuring out when and where you might engage with them. One thing that companies frequently do is find certain comments to engage with and you know, have a conversation on social. Thank somebody for their comment about the recipe you just posted, or maybe you know, give somebody props for something that they posted about your restaurant. So that kind of activity can be really helpful and inform what you do. So it's really just, social listening is really just a way for you, another fancy way for you to say, go on social media and check out some of the content.
Yeah, look at your competitors, right? Look
Yeah,
at what other
for sure.
people are doing. That's what it is. And it's an
Yep.
easier way than having to go get in your car and go look at your competitors.
Well, and it's a really effective way for you to know what people are saying about you online. Yeah, the content, you know, you don't, like I said, not every comment is going to be worth engaging. You want to see, like, you know, how important it is. Has it been gotten a lot of engagement itself? But it's good to know.
We have more questions.
Yes. Are there social media trends right now that small businesses should be aware of? I think that would be a question for Diana.
Diana.
So sorry about that. So I think we really go back to being authentic to you and your voice. I think what we're really seeing is people wanting to show up and support businesses that are authentic. They're showing their personality and they're communicating and investing in their community in doing that. And one of the things that I would say, you know, that's certainly in the promotion and your brand side. Again, like, you know, it's not just your logo, right, that makes a brand. It's your personality, it's showing up, it's how you're communicating. But one of the things that we really wanted to focus on, again, during the pandemic, was how do you bring that in-person physical experience of shopping in a store online, since all of us could not do that and it was very painful. So we created Facebook and Instagram shops, which is actually a one-stop shop e-commerce experience that allows for businesses and to specifically target their customers and showcase up to 30 pieces. I mean, it may have changed now, but at the beginning, it was at least 30 pieces of merchandise or whatever it was that you wanted to share, and customize it to your audience. And so you could have, you know, you could swap out the items. But then what was also great about it is that it allowed you to build your own virtual storefront. It really allowed you to customize it to your personality. And what it also allowed to do with another one of our partners is in the payment platform piece, is that you didn't have to bounce around. When your customer wanted to pay for something, they saw that hat and they knew that they wanted it. They didn't have to then click on this link and then click on that link and then go over here and bounce around and then say, oh, I need to get my credit card information. Hopefully it's stored on this app or wherever you're shopping from. What it allowed you to do is have that in-person or feeling in-person experience where you gave over your credit card information and it was processed in one experience. And then you left as a happy customer because you had that as close to an in-person experience as possible. And so again, trying to use that personality and that customization to the best of your ability to show your personality, I think that's one of the best things that you can do.
I think that's so great because it just gives us another distribution outlet. Look, it's there now, Instagram. It's in the, that's amazing. Unfortunately, you guys are so great. See, that's why I knew you guys needed even more time. Thank you so much. I've learned so much. And I know our audience has learned so much. And I thank the Chamber for putting us all together. So we will see you soon. There's going to be all this information and we're going to give you more information at the end. I'm going to throw it back now to Kevin.
Thank you so much, everyone. And unfortunately, that's all the time we have. Thank you very much to our panelists, Nelly, Roberto, Diana, and Lee. We'll be taking another short break now before we come back at noon, and we'll be closing celebration with DJ Raul Campos of KCRW, some fun giveaways, and more partner recognition. So thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you shortly.
Thank you.
Thank you.